Now there is one more thing to show you with regards to picture-in-picture type of effects, and this is called track motion. Now this is nothing to do with motion tracking. Motion tracking we'll have a look at if we get time with HIT Film. So you can do motion tracking through the integration of Sony Vegas with HIT Film. No, track motion is about animating how a track works. And a track is multiple clips, it's not a single clip. So if I pull this clip down here into my timeline and create a new clip, and I was to pull something else directly afterwards, whatever I do to the track motion will affect every single event inside the track. It's not just going to affect individual events as we've been doing with event pan crop, this is going to affect everything. Okay, now you can still do event pan crop and apply layer dimensionality, and you will see it going through. And you can apply layer dimensionality to a whole track, but when you do so you will lose the 3D-ness of the end result. So if you want something to move in 3D and have layer dimensionality, you need to do your zooming in and out with event pan crop, so you need to see the edges of the item, apply layer dimensionality, apply your drop shadow, your glow, whatever you want to do, and then you can do the 3D motion, as you'll see in a minute, with the track motion option. And that way you can actually see it. I'll show you what I mean. This is the button to do track motion, and it is about the motion of every clip in the track. And once again you're going to see that keyframes are going to be automatically created, so I want to be at the beginning so I don't have a keyframe halfway through. So I'm going to click track motion, and I get a window which is extremely similar to event pan crop. Now you'll notice however that there are a certain number of different options here. For instance, there's something called orientation and something called rotation. Orientation has got a limited range to it. I'll just show you this. If we go to orientation, you can go up to 360 degrees and back to minus 360 degrees. So it's got a limited range of rotation, and it's associated with this little blue line in the middle, which you can go around to rotate an item. And to get it back you can double click it. Okay, so that's orientation, but there is something called rotation. If I go to rotation, you can see it's got a little slider, but when I pull that out, well, I can go up to 1800 positive and 1800 negative, which is multiple complete rotations. And there are a number of different options inside. But if I double click that circle now, it has reset angle, but it won't under all circumstances. Okay, so we can rotate it, we can grab hold of this thing in the middle and we can pull it around. Double click takes it back to the middle. You can also scale it down and scale it up. But what you're doing is you are scaling the whole track. So if I click somewhere else like here, you'll see that the next clip has been scaled as well. And it is the whole clip. We haven't done the same as an event pan crop, where you're effectively pulling the clips into the viewable area. What you're doing is saying this whole track is smaller. It starts smaller and finishes smaller. So you need to be a little bit careful. As I say, layer dimensionality and bits and pieces like that are not going to work the same, because it's not an event crop. It is a track effective crop in what you're doing here. Okay, so let me show you a few options. I'm actually going to go down a bit more. You'll see that that's affecting up here where it says height and width. They are locked together. If you want to unlock them, you've got this little box here which says lock aspect ratio. If I uncheck that, I can now make things tall and thin. But notice I'm stretching. Okay, the whole clip is stretching and looking seriously weird. So I'm going to Control Z and I'm going to re-enable that. You've also got this one, scale about the center. You don't have to scale it about the center anymore. You can scale it from one point or another. Okay, so I'm going to Control Z to undo that, select it. Okay, you can also sort of say prevent scaling in one way, prevent scaling in another way. So there are different ways of moving things around. So you can play with these different bits and pieces and you can move them around. But if I just scale this down a tad more, move it down a bit, and now I'm going to look at these other rotation options. Notice I got X and Y offset. X goes across because, as somebody said to me the other day, it is a cross, which is terrible. And Y goes up and down. So if I go to Y, I'm going to move, notice that circle? That's the sort of the anchor point, the center point of the item, moves to the top of the clip. Now watch what happens when I change the angle of rotation. The clip starts to rotate around where I've moved that point. So I get a completely different look, which can be really valuable. So So I'm going to reset that. And let's also reset Y and look at X. So I'm going to move it slightly to one side. Let's move it actually to the left this time. There we go, just there. Now when I do rotation, just click and drag on these double arrows, as you can see I am doing. It's going to rotate around that point. So you can get some really interesting animations going with this type of option. These are quite advanced options, and it's great fun to play with these. But do bear in mind that it's going to affect every single clip in your production. And also, if you are not over the beginning of your work area, you will be adding keyframes because these are animatable. So for example, if I go here and I was to change that rotation again, go the other way, you'll notice I've got my keyframe and I actually have rotation. I've animated it. Okay? So just bear in mind that when you are in here, you can be creating keyframes, you can be doing all kinds of bits and pieces, and it affects every single clip. But as well as being able to do all these kinds of things, which are amazing, and also you notice you've got the ability to change your keyframe type and smoothness, and you can play with all kinds of things. Workspace, you can zoom in and out, make things bigger or smaller, however you want to do it. You can play around with all kinds of things. These are amazing options. There's one even better option, I think, which is this one that says Source Alpha. When you drop Source Alpha, you've got 3D Source Alpha. And that takes me to a different window entirely, and the ability to be able to rotate things in 3D space. So I'm just going to reset them here, so I can rotate them here, say along the Y-axis. Oh no, I've actually got the X-axis there. You just need to be careful which axis you go on. Let's try it here. Let's try this one for the Y. There you go. That's the Y-axis. So you can see I can animate something to come in from one angle and go out at the other, and that is really powerful. That's a great way of revealing something, of drawing attention to something as you actually go through it. And if you hover over this one, you can kind of also do the same thing in the perspective, change its angles one way or the other. There's loads of things that you can do. You can double click to reset them. So just bear in mind that you've got this ability to be able to move these things in 3D space. But layer dimensionality is going to work differently for a track like this. So if I make this so it's truly 3D and you can see it, and I'm perhaps going to pull this clip underneath so you can see that clip underneath. Okay, so say I want to add layer dimensionality. Notice I've got no ability to add it here. I don't have any of the options here. So I'm going to click that off. To be able to add layer dimensionality, let's say I want to add it to this event. So let's select the event, let's go here and let's add layer dimensionality, and let's find it. There it is. Okay, add it. Okay, it's in there. Let's try adding a glow. So let's try adding an inner glow, and okay, turning it up a bit. Can't see anything. Nothing's happening on that clip that I can see. If I was to add a shadow, I'm going to get none. It's not going to work. Okay, this is not going to work. In fact, I'm going to get rid of it and show you. The way that you can make it work, I'm in the event pan crop for this clip now. Okay, so I'm going to make an event pan crop. I'm going to go a lot bigger. Okay, now I'm going to add in layer dimensionality. And now I'm going to add in my drop shadow. And you'll see that there is a drop shadow there. And if I add in a glow, I was to add in an inner glow, you'll see that you have to zoom in, but you'll see that there is actually a red inner glow. So as long as you are using event pan crop to see the image, maybe I can go in a little bit closer and you can see it a bit more. I'm seeing more of it, but bear in mind that the whole track has been changed. In fact, if I pull this across, you'll see it seems as if the viewable window is much smaller. That's because you've used the track motion to reduce the viewable area. So layer dimensionality is not going to work in quite the way you think it's going to work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to reset this, take it back to its full size, and I'm going to get rid of layer dimensionality by just clicking this one, saying I don't want that effect anymore, and turn it off. That's the full size. There is one way of adding it to the whole track, so all the clips in the track, and that's through what's called a composition mode. Now we're going to go through composition modes later on, but this button here allows you to add composition modes. And you'll see that there is one that says custom. And under custom, you've got the ability to add Sony's layer dimensionality. Double click to add it, but we've got a warning sign. You are converting from 3D to 2D track motion. Some keyframe data will be lost. Are you sure you want to continue? Well, I'm going to click yes, but have a little look at the item here. Here's the item. When I click yes, it goes back to being 2D, and I've lost all that wonderful perspective. Sure, I can now go in and I can add a drop shadow. And sure, I can add a glow. But I mean, surely the whole point of doing what we've just done is actually to have that really wonderful 3D look. Okay, so just bear in mind that there are limitations. You need to do your event pan crop first, and then when you've done your event pan crop, then go in and play with your track motion, and you'll be able to see your drop shadow and everything working in 3D. So very quickly, let me start again and show you how to do that. Do you want to save the changes? No. I'm going to pull the item down here, and I'm going to pull something underneath just to see it underneath. That's great. So here's my item. I'm going to click over it so we can see it, and I'm going to do an event pan crop on this one, and that means I'm just going to zoom out. So I've got the item here, and I'm going to add in layer dimensionality. So I'm going to do it this way. So there it is. Double click and click OK. So it's actually in there, and I'm going to very quickly drop in a drop shadow. Yep, we'll have drop shadow, and we'll have an outer glow. And I think that's probably enough for you to be able to see. Just make it nice and obvious. There you go. Nice and obvious. There it is. Okay, so there is the item on that track. Okay, now when I go to the track motion tab, I don't really want to fiddle with zooming in and out, because that'll just give me this even smaller and make it look terrible. But if I go from source alpha down to 3D source alpha, I can now do that 3D motion, maintaining my drop shadow and my outer glow. Okay, so there are workarounds to make this sort of thing work. Do the event pan crop first and then do the track motion. One final thing to say, I'm sorry this is a long tutorial, but this is quite important. This is a track based effect. So it is now affecting every item in this track. So if I pull something else down here, you'll see that when I click on it, again, it's affecting the item. Now that looks a lot bigger because I've not done an event pan crop on it, okay? But even so, it's still affected the track. So if you are going to do this kind of clever thing, I would advise that what you do is you shut the track down when you've done a special move like that, and don't use that track for anything else. If you're going to do another one of these moves, create a new track and do a layer dimensionality to the item that you've then done an event pan crop to, and then do your track motion work at that point, but don't have anything else in that track. I know that that can be a nuisance and you can end up with lots of bits and pieces, but do bear in mind, I showed you before, that once you've done that, you can select them all, group them and shut them down, and it can become very small very easily. Well, I hope you found this rather long tutorial helpful, and I hope you're going to have a lot of fun creating some really great results using track motion with layer dimensionality inside a pan-cropped event. Have fun. My name's Andrew Davis, and thanks for watching.